Hey guys, Matt here. It's the Broken Supercoach checking in. Thought we'd do a quick one for teams today. Teams dropped late last night, but there was a footy game on, so no real point dropping it while everyone's watching the footy. We can go through. We'll also do a quick look at how Bulldogs Carlton went points-wise, because there were some interesting things in there, and what to keep an eye on for later today when you're sitting around. What sort of things, what sort of team should you be keeping your eye on this afternoon? So let's have a quick look. We saw all this. Um, Carlton, the only thing, Sam Walsh in, we saw he went pretty slow. We'll go over that in a bit. Two others in, health and safety protocols there listing COVID as, so whether you're a close contact or have COVID, I guess they're trying to keep that under wraps, so it's just called HS protocols. That's one we're going to see a lot this year. Interesting. It's an interesting dilemma here with Carlton because there's a lot of guys you want from Carlton. You might want Durden, who didn't score that well last night. We'll all have our eye on Sam Walsh, and Cripps looks really good as well. But you've got to be careful because, it's lucky that you can't do it now, but just be careful next week, I think, because obviously COVID's running through Carlton. The coach, a couple of coaches, two players now. You just got to wonder, does that spread out? Do they get some more health and safety protocols in the next few days? Just keep an eye on that because the last thing you want to do, well, you can't do it now, but if you traded in Cripps last night, perhaps, or you traded in, say, Hewitt last night, and then on Monday he gets health and safety protocol as well, you're going to be kicking yourself. So it's something we hadn't had to worry about. So think about that. Geelong, Sydney, but he'll probably kick 1,000 in this one, as in career 1,000. He's not going to kick 1,000 goals. That would be some AFL Live type stuff. Duncan in. Yeah, DeConning's obviously out. That's frustrating. And with these two ins, Buse and Duncan's, we may not see DeConning again, which is unlucky for him because he had a good preseason and he had a good... it was a decent game, wasn't it, before he got concussed? So it's not the end of the world for him. So do we see him again? I think we will. Whether he comes back next week or not, I don't know. It'll be reliant on how Buse plays, I guess. But the real risk is that now DeConning is, Buse just starts and maybe DeConning takes the sub position going forward. So that could be even bigger a disaster because then you can't even loop the lad. Obviously loop him this week and I'll show you my field in a bit. You can't now. If you should have looped him with McRae, and if you didn't, then that's a mistake. But you can use him as a loop for last night. So old info. Sorry if you were relying on me to tell you that. But you guys are smart enough to know that that's what you should have done. I made an error with another out, but it is what it is. Crows Collingwood, not a huge amount relevant here. Our boy Saligo, I think, is the only relevant call here. I'd have to look at the prices of Pedler and Cook or Gollan. Actually, we should have... They're ones to keep an eye on. I reckon Pedler is still a decent price. I don't think Cook is, and Gollan might be as well. I don't think any of them are Supercoach relevant, and I don't think their job security is good enough either. I think what you're going to find is, Miller will come back into the team at some point. He just looked rusty. Hadn't played AFL for 2 years. It's a long time to have not played AFL. So, we're talking about a guy who, or maybe even longer than 2 years. Yeah, whatever it is, he will be back in the team. He's a good enough player. He showed signs of it. He just looked a little bit behind the ball, and he looked a little bit... I don't know. I think the pace of the game was a bit much for him, and his disposal was definitely affected by that. So they'll probably rest him, give him some lower pressure games, perhaps in the sample for a couple, just to get his skills honed, because he's a skill player, and he'll come back and he'll take the spot of one of these guys. Saligo, I don't think we'll see him again, and Thilthorpe we definitely will see again. I think that's a statement omission, that one. So he'll come back for the showdown and he'll be hungrier for it, you'd think. And McPherson never want to see on an AFL field ever again, but he's not Supercoach relevant. So frustrating about Saligo, and sadly, there's actually no one to trade him in for now when we go down. So we're just going to have to sit on Saligo for a little while until another rookie shows himself. If you took him, for me, I don't regret this. I knew that his job security was low, and the other choice was Owens, and he was arguably the worst AFL player I've seen in a very long time. Not the worst. That's harsh on a first gamer kid, but he wasn't AFL ready and he got put out for crucifixion, really. So I wouldn't. It's not a huge deal. It was just a dead spot for me, really. And then what? You would have picked a Mead as well, and as you'll see later, he's not in the team either. So really, that last rookie spot was a dead location for most people, I think. Essendon Brisbane, nothing here to speak of. Nick Martin, health and safety protocols, absolutely tragic. I should have probably looped him with McGovern, being that I could. I didn't, and that's backfired on me big time. But, to get Hayes in, but whatever. I could probably loop him against, Hayes versus someone else. Don't know who else. I'll have a look. I might be able to, but McGovern was the one I should have looped him with. Rookie mistake. I hope I don't bleed too many points on that by having Hayes on the bench. And for the record, I don't think Hayes has the type of game that he did last week. I think Hayes is a quality player. I think he's going to be good, but he's not going to drop 130 every game. And if he does, then we got ourselves a keeper. Who's in? Francis, Stringer, Durham. So that probably means that these guys, you may never see him back. Martin should come back because he's that good. He looked like one of their best players, and he looks like an AFL player. And it's not just one game. It's every game I've seen him in. He looks like an AFL player. He's a mature age. 20 years old is mature age nowadays. He looks good. So I think he'll come straight back in. Unsure who for, but don't worry about that. But yeah, these are big ins for Essendon. Bit of rookie love, Sin and Skinner. Unsure why they didn't pick him last week. I know that Port got ravaged by injuries, but Robbie Gray was already injured, and it was a mistake to pick him. And they got exposed because of it. Alia injured as well, and Mead omitted, who I didn't think was that bad, but Sin and Skinner have earned it, and it was. If I'm being honest, it was a really weird. It's not something we usually see Port do. Pick a kid for one game who played pretty well enough, and now drop him for two other kids. It's not Port-like. They usually get a little bit. They usually get better than that. So interesting. Sin and Skinner rather. Hopefully they hold their spots, and you know which one you can pick up in a couple of weeks. I wouldn't be moving any mountains to get them in this week. You got 3 weeks to look at these guys, so make the most of that. Hopefully they line up nicely in some sort of DPP change in round 6, even if they go in and out the team, and you might be able to look at them there. Hawthorn, nothing here. Our boy Ward made it, so we're happy with that. McGuinness, McDonald, all of those guys have made it in through the COVID protocol, so that's great. That shows that Sam Mitchell likes the young kids. He likes putting them in, so you can expect, if you see a bad game out of McDonald, or you see a bad game out of Ward, don't be too fussed, because Mitchell's obviously happy to play him, because he's just dropped, Shields, named Phillips as the sub, so he's obviously very keen on playing these kids full games of footy. So Hawthorn will be a really good source of rookies this year, I think. What else we got? Melbourne, not really relevant. Gold Coast have made no changes, so again, not hugely relevant. And here's the Sunday teams, which haven't quite been updated yet. So you'll find these will be updated later in the day. Sorry. Nothing really here. This team just seems to be absolutely ravaged by COVID. I'm genuinely concerned about picking anyone here. Guys like I have Dixon, obviously, and I think Dixon potentially keeps his spot for a long time. But some of these blokes, Giro and Mountford, they're almost generic AFL names. You know what I mean? I know Giro, but Declan Mountford is a name you'd see in Football Manager. You've done a 10-year save, and here's Declan Mountford. He's got the grey silhouette, plays utility. It's who are these people? So I'm very hesitant to pick any West Coast player at the moment. But it is what it is. North, nothing really to name here. Pollock back in. I know that he was nicely priced. I don't trust the amount. He couldn't even get up the last game. I don't really trust that pick. but could be a very nice pick if you get it. Nothing else relevant here. Through Richmond, I think Maurice Rioli's a good price. Again, I'm not. We'll have to keep an eye on some of these guys. Like, where have they been named? Yeah, see, like just on the bench, most of these guys. So you think they don't make a huge amount of changes? They've got to make 2 changes. It'll be interesting to see who they do. I think they'd probably like Parker for Rewalt, and then unsure who they do for Press. It'd be cool to see Maurice Rioli go. And GWS, Bruce in. Bruce named on the bench with Flynn, so that sort of ruins anyone who wanted to. I suppose they did it was Zeri, Cullen Coleman Jones, and Goldstein last week, wasn't it? So maybe not the end of the world, but I think Flynn did enough to probably keep his spot, which means Bruce and Flynn are probably going to share the ruck. Hard to trust. Cornelio named right there on the ball again. Love to see it. Hopefully he can get a better game. And not a lot to mention there. So the only one we're really worried about is Bruce being named. So we're pretty happy about that, I think, if you wanted to try to get Bruce in. But I think 200k is too much to put on your bench, and you haven't named him. Now, you didn't. If you named him and you're starting 2 after he wasn't picked, then there's something wrong with you. And then we've got a couple of health safety protocols. Brandon Cox, David Mundy. O'Driscoll was very popular. I know a lot of people have him, and Sean Darcy's back in the team. Sean Darcy obviously named at R1, but O'Driscoll named on the extended bench, so you assume he doesn't make it in. The one to watch, though, is Will Brodie. He's named on the extended bench, and he was off for a good portion at the end of the game last week here in Adelaide. We definitely want to see an update on this today from Fremantle. And I know we don't take much out of this, but they're named in an order for a reason. And him being named 4th on the bench with Luke Ryan here, it's with Brendan Cox out. It's a real worry. I'm actually genuinely worried about Will Brodie, and I'll let you know, because of the amount of trades you have, 2 and then the boost 3 next week. If Brodie's dropped, I'll drop him straight up. I will probably go to Zeri or someone like that, because he was named, or Zeri, Cherry, whatever you want to call him. He's in the team named at R1, so I probably will switch out those 2 and make the money back. If Brodie's not named, that is. And that concerns me so much that I'll think about it next week. Oh, you've got to keep an eye on Will Brodie. And St Kilda, not a huge amount to say here. Owens rightly dropped. Bad luck. Nasiah Wanganeen Miller are named on field. Couple of questions about him throughout the week. I just think now he's been named as a sub last week, you can't go him. And it's disappointing, because I think he's going to be a really good scorer. But that sub risk is too much for me. The fact that he has been named as the sub last week, without some sort of proper explanation from Brett Ratton as to why that happened. Maybe he wanted to show him a pre-game, warm-up, etc. without debuting him. Maybe there was some nerves. I don't know. The fact that he has been named sub now almost rules him out of Supercoach, because you can't. The last thing you want, and I'll give you my reasoning for that. The last thing you want is for you pick in 3 weeks, he plays 3 full games, or 2 full games, and then in the 3rd week you trade him in, and he goes up, say 50k, 60k maybe. Great. The next week he's named as the sub, and you say, all right, I got 60k out of him, no big deal. What it means is you have to trade him right then and there immediately. You cannot have a bloke named as a sub in your team who is going week to week on money. And the reason is because if he comes on in the 4th quarter and he scores 3 points as the sub, you immediately lose money. So you cannot have a bloke in your team named as a sub who's going to go down in price if he goes on field. And that's why I won't be going near Wanganeen Miller. And that could be a mistake. He may play 21 games from now on, and he might be one of the best rookies around. But I'd want to see let's be real. If he scores 100, then I'll get him in for sure. If he gets, 100 and then 100, for sure, I'll pick him then. But you can't pick him on normal rookie scores, 40, 50s. You can't do it just because of the sub factor. And that's the teams. So A little bit to look at today. Will Brodie. We want to see. Well, that's about it, isn't it? We really want to see Will Brodie announced today. But everything else is pretty straightforward. We'll keep an eye on what we're going to do with Soligo. Just hold him for the moment. And last night, we'll have a look at last night's game just quickly, go over the main contenders. Cripps really looks like the real deal. And sadly, I don't think I can get him. I just don't see how I can do it without messing with the structure way too much and losing a quality player. I could perhaps find a way. Yeah, I just don't think it can happen. Even through 3 trades, I can't, because unless the only serious option about Cripps is if Steele scores another 80 or another 70 or something, and then I'd start to be concerned about Steele. But I'd hate to trade Jack Steele. That would be ridiculous. But if he backs it up with another low score, then you've got to think that he's either carrying an injury or they've put him in a different role. So I don't think Steele's the one for me. And outside of that, I've got Crisp who I want to address. I want to address him this week, but I can't. With that, there's no DPP at the moment, so I can't get rid of him and find a way to get a midfielder in as well. And I don't mind my midfield at the moment, the way it looks. I'm not making any trades, so my team is exactly the same. You should have looped McRae. I did. 142. He's the GOAT. He's as good as it comes. Bailey Smith was out, so that's unfortunate. Tim English looks like a wonderful ruck choice, especially because he can go forward as well. Dunkley with 97. He'll be in our final 6. There's not really anyone else to comment on the Bulldogs side. Another quick look just in case. Not really. Nah, Bailey Dale, and I know that some people might have gone him. Not really. Bont seems to just be 100 at the moment. Could be a target for later. He might go down to about, if he gets to 500 for 99, scoring only 100s, could be a target for late in the season. And Bailey Smith obviously out of the team again, so we have to kind of worry about his consistency there. Carlton, I spoke about Cripps. Hewitt looks like the goods. I'm not bothered at all now anymore. I've seen him with Walsh. We saw him with Walsh last night. Walsh 90, fine. Don't think Walsh is fit, so he'll be one to look at for the buys. His price will be amazing. And Crispy Hewitt looks like an absolute no-brainer next week if Crisp doesn't put up a very good score against the Crows. Absolute no-brainer. And if you missed Hewitt and Crisp does score well, Ridley's another one I'd look at. If Ridley doesn't do a big score, I'll go down to Hewitt. I've got 2 players I'll try to get Hewitt down to next week, either Ridley or Crisp. And frankly, Hewitt is a top 6 mid. Oh, and if he's not a top 6 mid, he's a top 6 mid that you'll pick. So he's a meta pick, so he's highly owned. There is no downside to picking Hewitt for trading in Hewitt. And I've made that call after 2 games, and that's enough. That's enough time to do it. Walsh back, interesting score. As we said, he's what, a 650k mid, is he? 637k. He'll go down to a very nice price when the buys are around. So, but nobody started him. If you started him, you don't know how to play Supercoach. Sorry to tell you. The other McGovern was a shocker, which is really upsetting. But we knew he'd have games like this, and we're not worried because in round 6 he'll get a defense flag as well. We'll be able to swing him up for some defense cover because rookies are looking extremely dire up there, despite 2 port ones being named. So not hugely fussed about that score. Should have looped in with Martin, but I didn't think it didn't cross my mind. He scored 70 last week. I thought he'd drop another 70 in. I'm not looping 70s from cheap players. Durden 24. Second worst player on the ground. Well, fourth worst, Supercoach wise. 5th worst, sorry. Doesn't look like he did anything. I'll skip this rookie, to be honest. With a score of, I know he's on minus break even now, but with a score of that for 140, I'll skip him now. So for me, I have all the rookies that I want, even though he will go up in price next week. Not too fussed about him. Quick look at the team if you guys want. Like I said, there's no changes, so don't stress. I've obviously done my loop. I'll do it with Hinge. I think Hinge is a better upside than Gibb because I think Gibb was lucky to get 50 last week. That's about it, really. As I said, I probably should have looped Martin with someone. there's kind of no point. Now, I probably still can, I guess. When's Martin play? Here. I can loop him with Rochelle, I guess, on the Saturday game. So I'll just keep an eye on it on Saturday. So I will do that, actually. Let's do it now. We'll slap the E on him. I'll take the E off. Slap the E on. So that's how you do it. For anyone who doesn't know how to do a loophole play, that's how you do it. Nick Martin's not playing. So if you have a player playing before him, you go in, you slap the E on him. So when Martin doesn't play, Rochelle gets put in. But if you make the change before Martin, you can do it. So I can have a look at what Rochelle's on track for. Say he only gets 3 touches and kicks 2 goals. Puts on a score of 40, whatever. I'll put Hayes on the field. And I'll be pretty confident. I think the score you want to accept, I know that Hayes just scored 120, 127, and Rochelle just scored 118. And at the end of the day, we might need to put him on for Brody. Keep that in mind too. What sort of score would I be thinking about? I think anything. Keep in mind that these are rookies, and their scores last week weren't normal. I think if Rochelle was to score anything more than 50 or 60, I'd probably take that on field. I just don't. I know that Hayes looked amazing, but it was really on the back of a 10-minute, maybe a 15-minute spurt where he got all his points. He looked good throughout the game, but all of his points were in, it was within a quarter. So I'm not hugely fussed. I don't think he's going to drop 100 again. So it is what it is. I'll bank if Rochelle scores a 60 or gets close to that, and you've got to keep an eye because this game will probably start at a similar time. So, Marvel. No, it won't. It'll be right after it. So that's good. You get the whole, you won't get scaling, but you'll be able to know. If Rochelle's had a stinker by halftime, you'll be able to know. We'll put Hayes on, and he goes. Yeah, and that's about it, if I'm being honest. Thanks for watching. Let us know if you're doing any trades. Are you getting rid of Crisp? It's too late for me to do. I'm just going to watch. And if these two don't look good again, then Hewitt comes in for one of them. Otherwise, I miss Hewitt. And Cripps is the same. I just don't have a way to get him in. I know I got Stevens on field, but it's a 300k increase. So I can't do it. I might be able to I could do it in 2 trades maybe. Say Crisp scores another 60 odd, which he might. We'll go Crisp to Hewitt. That gives us what? About 150k to play with. 200k there. And then I need to think about moving a 200k player on, which I don't have. Will Brody, perhaps, but then he's a forward. So, I don't think I have a way to get Cripps without doing some seriously bad moves. The obvious one is if Steele drops sub 100 again. I know that's a ridiculous statement to make that I would be trading Steele, but I think with the extra trades we have this year, if Steele drops another 80, this guy's going to go down 100k really quickly. So I don't think using a trade to get Cripps in, who will make up the money and probably be a top 8 midfielder, and then grab Steele if he improves later in the year for 200k cheaper. I don't think that's bad use of your trades, honestly. Essentially, you've made 200, say it's 150 on Steele and then 150 on Cripps. That's 300k. I think that's worth the trade or two to do that. So, not a bad deal. Anyway, thanks for watching, guys. Hit a like, hit a subscribe. Fingers crossed on the Will Brody bandwagon. Good luck this week in your league games. Round 1 of the league games. Good luck. Let's hope for a better score than last week, and let's hope we can boost ourselves up the rankings. Cheers, guys.